Aloha, this is Professor Porter. We're talking about the Federal Rules of Evidence. We're in Article 4, Rule 409, which is offers to pay medical and similar expenses. These are called the policy rules, Rule 407 to 411. They're specific policy rules, specific reasons why a piece of evidence might overcome the very shallow hurdle of relevance, but wouldn't be kept out by that last hurdle of 403. So they come up with specific policy rules as these certain areas. 409 smack dab in the middle, but is possibly the easiest to understand and the clearest to sort of show us a path to all of these policy rules. It's about one sentence long, and essentially anyone jumping out after someone's injured and jumping out and offering to pay, promising to pay, or actually paying their medical expenses, and that includes hospital, similar expenses, any type of medical expenses, that's not admissible at the trial to prove liability. So just think about that statement and break it down, right? If the proponent at trial that was injured, this case doesn't settle, proceeds all the way to trial, you can imagine the proponent thinking it's a good idea. Hey, I want to, in addition to the other witnesses, other testimony, other exhibits that I want to put on, I want to put on evidence that this person jumped out as soon as I was hurt, as soon as the accident took place, and offered to pay my medical expenses. And why would I want to do that? What would that be probative of? Why would that be relevant? Because it's more likely that if someone jumps out and says, I'll pay your medical expenses, it's more likely that they did it. It's more likely that they should be held liable for it. It's more likely that they're to blame. So the exact purpose that you'd want to use it as a proponent is exactly what this policy rule is excluded. So all these policy rules come down to there's always a way around it, and essentially it's good purpose, bad purpose. Uh, if they're trying to do it to prove liability, the opponent, as the party that stands ready to object, is the one that sits in opposition, has to patrol and look out. Are they going to get into the actual payment of medical expenses or the furnishing or promising to pay medical expenses? If that's what they're going to get into at trial, objection, Rule 409, this is an offer to pay medical expenses. It should be excluded, Your Honor, specifically under the rule. They're doing that thing. They're putting on evidence of furnishing, promising, or actually paying medical expenses, and they're doing it for the bad purpose. They're doing it to prove liability. And at that moment, you can picture the proponent making their way over to sidebar, a conversation that we're going to have outside of the ears of the jury, putting two hands up in the air and say, no, 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 not a bad purpose. I'm not offering this for the reason stated in the rule. I'm not offering this to prove liability. I'm doing it for some other purpose that they would then have to articulate at sidebar to somehow get over it. And we'll see it in some of the other rules. Maybe they offer it to prove ownership because this person that's being sued here denies that they even own the area where the accident took place, but yet they offer to pay the medical expenses. Maybe it's some other reason that we're introducing this evidence to show that there actually was an injury that took place. If they're denying that this person was ever injured, we're saying, look, of course they were injured. Somebody came over here to offer to pay medical expenses. That doesn't happen unless someone's injured. So the bad purpose in this rule is to prove liability. Good purpose is sort of anything else. So you can offer evidence as the proponent of offering to pay, furnishing, promising to pay medical expenses, actually paying medical expenses, as long as you do it for some other purpose than the bad purpose in the rule of proving liability. And don't forget with it that these policy rules are often coupled with not only relevance, which it's going to get over, that there is some tendency that this offer to pay medical expenses is going to make it more probable that they did something wrong, that they are liable for this accident than it would be without this evidence. It's going to clear the relevance hurdle. It's going to be relevant. And don't forget on the back end 403, a promise to pay medical expenses is probably a very low probative value when you're doing that balancing under 403. So think about these policy rules as coupled with the other